My name is Evelyn Brooks. I'm 70 years old. And, strange as it may sound, only now have I learned what the word peace truly means. For 48 years, I lived in the same house. The walls knew the sound of my laughter and the echo of my silence. There, I built a marriage, raised a son, and buried a husband. There, I was everything: wife, mother, homemaker, shopkeeper, nurse, psychologist, cook, and, in the end, just a tired woman. George and I owned a little neighborhood store. We sold a bit of everything: groceries, newspapers, candles, simple medicine. He was a practical man, the kind who believed honesty was the best investment. I was the heart of the business. Ethan, our only son, grew up between shelves and cereal boxes, always saying he'd have something bigger one day. Maybe he did, but somewhere along the way, in his pursuit of bigger, he forgot what was essential. When George died, the store lost its light. The shelves grew emptier and the silence heavier. I'd wake up expecting to hear the keys jingling, the radio playing, the smell of strong coffee, but nothing. Only the ticking clock and the distant sound of a world moving on without me. Before I continue, this channel needs your support to keep bringing more stories like this one. Please, subscribe. It is really important. So, it took me 2 years to understand that grief wasn't the end. It was a kind of pause. And one cold January morning, I decided that pause had lasted long enough. I sold the house, I sold the store. And with the money, I bought a small country home 2 hours outside the city. I remember the realtor saying, "It's small, but it has soul." And it did. The first time I stepped onto that wooden porch, I felt something I hadn't felt in years: belonging. The smell of damp earth, the song of cicadas, the cool breeze dancing through the curtains. It was simple, but it was mine. I spent weeks cleaning, painting, organizing. Every piece of furniture I chose had meaning: the armchair by the fireplace, my reading nook, the rustic kitchen table, where I'd serve coffee to neighbors, the back room. I turned it into a sewing studio. I'd always loved to sew. George used to say my hands spoke to the fabric. Sometimes, I caught myself talking out loud. "What do you think, George? White curtains or blue?" And for a moment, I could almost hear his answer. Mornings in the countryside are different. The sun doesn't invade, it asks permission. Birds announce the day, and time seems to walk barefoot. During the first few months, my routine was simple and perfect. I woke up early, made coffee, tended the garden, wrote in my notebook. I called it my book of conversations with silence. There, I wrote down everything I felt, and without realizing it, I began to heal. Ethan called every now and then. "Hey Mom, how are you doing out there?" "I'm great, son. How are you and Sophie?" Busy work's been crazy. And the call would end quickly, the kind that feels more like an obligation than affection. I didn't blame him. He had his life, his wife, his commitments, but something had changed between us since George's funeral. Something unsaid but heavy, like an invisible crack. George had left a will, simple, fair. The house, the store, and the savings all in my name. Ethan would receive a symbolic amount, enough to start his own life, just as his father had planned. At the time, I thought he'd understand, but the look in his eyes told me otherwise. It was bitter, hurt, as if his father had loved the widow more than the son. I remember him saying, "So that's it? I get nothing." And the lawyer replied calmly, "Your father trusted your mother to take care of you, if you ever needed." He believed the greatest legacy he could leave was education and character. Ethan laughed, but it was a soundless, hollow laugh. He left the room without looking at me. And from that day on, we were never the same. Years went by. He married Sophie, a polite, sweet, but artificial woman. Everything about her seemed rehearsed, even her smile. I tried to like her. I tried even harder to be liked by her. But there was a wall between us, built out of quiet judgment. She treated me with respect, yes, but the kind of respect you give someone you'd rather avoid. Still, I did what I could, sent gifts, called on birthdays, cooked his favorite dishes when he visited, until the visits became rare, and then stopped altogether. In my notebook I once wrote, "The absence of those we love doesn't make noise. It takes the sound from the house, one room at a time." Over time, I learned to live well alone. I tended my garden, went on short hikes, chatted with neighbors. In the village, everyone called me Miss Eve, and I liked that. It was a new version of me, less mother, more woman. Sometimes, on cold nights, I'd make tea and look up at the starry sky. I thought of George, I thought of Ethan, and I wondered where we'd lost each other. But I never imagined that my reunion with my son would come in the most painful way, and that the home I bought for peace would become the stage for my deepest humiliation. It all started on a Friday afternoon. The phone rang. It was him. "Hey Mom, how are you?" His cheerful tone surprised me. "I'm wonderful, honey. It's so good to hear your voice." "Yeah, I called to share some good news. We're coming to visit you." "Oh, that's wonderful. When tomorrow?" Silence. "Tomorrow. Yep, me, Sophie, her family, and a few of her relatives. Everyone's excited to see the countryside." My heart froze. Relatives. Ethan. "Yeah, Mom. It'll be fun. Just a couple of weeks. We'll bring meat, drinks, the kids. You're gonna love it." He didn't ask if I could. He didn't ask if I wanted to. He just told me. When I hung up, I stood still for a long time. The kettle was whistling. Steam rose in the air. And I felt something inside me begin to melt along with the water. That night, I tidied up the house. Not out of excitement, but instinct. Welcoming people had always been my nature. But as I changed the pillowcases and folded the towels, one thought kept echoing in my mind. Are they bringing gratitude? Or just hunger? I went to bed late, listening to the wind outside and the restlessness inside my chest. My dreams were confusing voices, laughter, slamming doors, breaking dishes. I woke up drenched in sweat, and when I looked out the window, the sun was already gilding the fields. I had no idea that would be the last peaceful sunrise I'd see for a long time. By 10 in the morning, the cars started arriving. 1, 2, 3, 5, 20 people. Dust from the dirt road covered the lawn like a pale mist. Ethan stepped out of the first car, sunglasses on, smiling wide. "Mom, this place is amazing." Sophie followed right behind him, wearing a summer dress and a perfume that was far too sweet. "Oh, Evelyn, your house is so rustic. It has this charming vintage vibe, you know." Then came the rest: cousins, uncles, nieces, in-laws, people I had never seen before. They carried boxes, coolers, inflatable toys, and a loud, restless energy that didn't belong in the stillness of the countryside. Before I could say a word, Ethan shouted, "All right, everyone, pick your rooms." My stomach turned. My home, my refuge, had just become a ruleless campsite. By the afternoon, the pots were boiling. Children ran through the hallways. The radio blared. Sophie asked for napkins, silverware, dish lips, and without even realizing it, I was already wearing an apron, chopping vegetables. One of the aunts smiled and said, "It's so nice having someone cook for everyone, isn't it?" Ethan laughed. "My mom loves taking care of people. It's therapy for her." I smiled on the outside, but inside, something began to crack, because it wasn't therapy. It was exhaustion disguised as love. That night, after everyone had gone to bed, I sat alone on the porch. The moon was high, and the air smelled of wood smoke and guilt. I opened my notebook and wrote, "The worst kind of loneliness is being surrounded by people who don't really see you." And that's how the nightmare began. The first car had stopped, raising a cloud of dust that drifted across the garden like an old smoke the wind couldn't quite chase away. Then came the others, the sound of doors slamming, laughter, shouts, the hiss of tires on gravel. My heart raced. For a moment, I almost wished it were a dream. Ethan got out first, confident, wearing the same smile he used as a boy whenever he wanted something. He hugged me quickly, barely looking. "Mom, this place is incredible. You nailed it." "Thanks, son, but I wasn't expecting this many people." He laughed. "Come on, relax. Family's a blessing, remember." Everyone needed a break, and honestly, this house is way too big for you alone. Sophie followed, holding a pink thermos. Her perfume reached me before her voice did. "Evelyn, it's so good to see you. Oh, this place is so quaint." The word landed between us, like a thorn disguised as a compliment. Behind her came people I barely knew, someone's sister-in-law, a distant uncle, nephews I'd never met, kids with tablets, teenagers wearing headphones, adults with coolers and boxers. Suddenly, my yard looked like a parking lot, my porch, a tourist stop. "Can we come in?" someone asked. Before I could answer, they were already inside. The house that had been silent yesterday now breathed chaos. Bags in the hallways, shoes by the door, the smell of sunscreen, disinfectant, and disorder. A child ran to the couch with sticky hands covered in melted ice cream. Another shouted, Aunt Sophie, what's the Wi-Fi password? Sophie looked at me, smiling. Oh, Evelyn, could you share it? I don't even remember, dear. I hardly ever use the internet. She let out a soft laugh, the kind that carries judgment beneath the sweetness. Wow, such a simple life. I'm jealous. Meanwhile, Ethan rummaged through the cabinets, looking for glasses and plates. Got any beer, Mom? No, just juice and tea, he chuckled. We'll fix that later. We brought meat. Time for a barbecue. And suddenly, the backyard turned into a kitchen. Charcoal, grill, speakers, loud music, and me, standing there, watching my home be swallowed by a joy that didn't belong to me. At first, I tried to convince myself it was temporary, that maybe company would do me good, but the feeling of invasion grew like a rising tide. From the porch, Sophie called out, Evelyn, do you have more towels? The girls are taking the guest room, and the bathroom doesn't have a mat. Oh, I left everything in the laundry cabinet. Could you grab it for us? They're tired from the trip. I took a deep breath and went. In the laundry room, the smell of soap mixed with dust. I picked up the folded towels and headed back. As I walked down the hallway, I heard laughter. The women were in the bedroom, commenting on the furniture. Look at this, it's like something out of an old movie. Kind of spooky, right? Then one voice laughed out loud. Let's hope the plumbing can handle 20 people. I pretended not to hear. Smiling had always been my oldest instinct. But inside, I already felt like a piece of furniture out of place. At lunch, they insisted on helping, meaning they used every inch of my kitchen. Sophie ran the kitchen like a reality show host. People, chop the onions smaller. Evelyn, where are the big pots? These tiny ones won't do. The tiny pots were the ones I used to cook for myself. I'd never imagined I'd need to feed an army. The clatter of lids, the thick smell of grease, the overlapping voices. I tried to keep up serving plates, picking up glasses, wiping the floor. No one noticed. No one said thank you. When lunch was over, the sink was overflowing. Ethan put a hand on my shoulder. Ah, Mom, you're the best, always taking care of everything. I smiled, tired. Always. He didn't see my hands trembling from exhaustion. By late afternoon, the yard smelled of barbecue and beer. I sat on the porch with a cup of tea, trying to find some peace in the chaos. But the music was too loud, the laughter too loud, and my mind far too tired. I heard Ethan shout from the yard, Mom, come down here. We're making a toast. I went. He handed me a glass of wine. 2 family reunions. 2 togetherness. 2 the matriarch. Everyone echoed. 2 the matriarch. They all toasted. I tasted the wine. Bitter, heavy, forced. I smiled again. It's what they expected. But as I looked around, I realized something. No one was actually seeing me. I was just the backdrop of a party I hadn't been invited to. When night came, the house felt like a hotel with no receptionist. Everyone had claimed a room. Some were sleeping in the living room. There weren't enough pillows, and someone asked for extra blankets. I ran back and forth, improvising. Around midnight, I heard laughter coming from the master bedroom. My room. I knocked on the door. Ethan, he opened it. Sophie standing beside him. Oh, Mom, I hope you don't mind, but this is the only room with a decent bed. We'll sleep here, and you can take the small room in the back. Okay, just for a few days. I froze. The same room where George and I had dreamed together. The same room where I cried through countless cold nights. And now, it was theirs, of course. Son. Just for a few days. My voice came out calm, but my chest was burning. In the little back room, the mattress was thin and smelled of mildew. I lay down, but my body found no rest. Distant laughter echoed from the living room. And outside, the crickets seemed to sing a sad song. I took out my notebook and wrote, They've invaded my home, and I let them. Because deep down, I still hope my son will come back, even if through the wrong door. I closed the notebook and tucked it under my pillow, as if hiding a secret, but sleep never came. In the morning, I woke up to the smell of bacon. Sophie was in the kitchen, wearing an apron. Oh, Evelyn, did you sleep well? I hope the little room isn't too uncomfortable. It's cute, cute. Another word dipped in poison. At the table, Sophie's nephews were eating pancakes and dropping crumbs on the floor. One of them asked, Aunt Evelyn, do you have fresh orange juice? I think so. I can make some. Sophie cut me off. Oh, don't bother. She already did too much yesterday. Boys, just grab some soda. That sentence pierced me. She already did too much yesterday. And yet it sounded like she's done her part. But no one really meant enough. By mid-morning, I went to the garden to tend my flowers. My daisies were trampled. The wooden swing was scribbled on with pen. A flower pot lay broken by the gate. I sat on the bench and took a deep breath. The air felt heavy, dense, strange. Then I heard Ethan's voice from the porch. "Mom, everyone's thinking of staying a few extra days. Is that okay?" "How many extra days?" "Oh, maybe 2 weeks. They're loving it here." "And did you ask if I'm loving it?" He laughed, thinking I was joking. "Oh, Mom, you love having a full house." But I didn't laugh. I didn't answer. I just turned back to my flowers, or what was left of them. That night, when the house was finally asleep, I walked into the kitchen. The fridge was almost empty. A few eggs, some milk, half a bag of rice. I opened my wallet. A little money. Enough for me, not for 20. I sat at the table, my hands resting on the cold surface, and I cried, quietly, silently, like a woman who realizes, too late, that she's confused generosity with surrender. When I lifted my head, I saw my reflection in the window. Gray hair, a tired face, tearful eyes. But there was something new in that reflection, a seed of anger, the kind that doesn't scream, but grows. I took my notebook again and wrote, "Tonight, my house sleeps full, and my heart is empty. I don't yet know what I'll do, but I know that when I decide, no one will ever use me again without paying the price." I closed the notebook, and for the first time in a long time, I didn't feel guilty for being angry. I felt strong, raw, quiet, but alive. I woke up to the sound of pots clattering and footsteps echoing through the house. Sunlight was already streaming through the cracks of the little backroom window, scattering golden dust across the floor. For a moment, I forgot where I was. But the laughter coming from the kitchen quickly reminded me my house was no longer mine. I put on a sweater, tied my hair back, and stepped out. At the table, Sophie was running breakfast like the captain of a ship. "Evelyn, good morning. Sleep well." I smiled. "The mattress is a bit hard, but I'm fine." She laughed. "Oh, I knew that little room would be perfect for just one person." "It's so cozy." One person, I thought. That's what I had become. A woman alone, surrounded by people. Ethan was sitting at the head of the table, reading something on his phone. His face was lit by the screen, his eyes distant. "Morning, Mom." "Good morning, son. We made a list of what we need to buy. Everyone's excited to make the most of the weekend. But things are pricier around here." "Huh, yes, a little. It's a small town." He showed me the list. Meat, drinks, soda, fruit, charcoal, pool toys, cleaning supplies. "Oh, and if you can, grab some wine. Sophie likes the expensive ones." I forced a faint smile, trying to hide my discomfort. "You want me to do the shopping?" "Yeah, Mom. You know the market better. We'll settle up later, okay?" "We'll settle up later." 3 light words, but heavy with memory. An echo of the past, of all those times he'd take money from the shop's drawer and say the same. "I'll settle up later." He never did, and I never asked. I grabbed my purse, my car keys, and left, feeling the weight of the sun on my shoulders. At the village market, people greeted me kindly. "Mrs. Evelyn, it's been so long." I wanted to answer, since my house became a guest house, but I just smiled. When I came back, the living room was filled with mattresses and open suitcases, the smell of sunscreen mixed with fried food. Sophie was organizing photos on her phone. "Evelyn, look how pretty." I posted a photo of the house and it already has over 100 likes. I captioned it, "The Brooks Family Retreat, a hidden paradise in the countryside." I smiled politely, but something burned inside me. The Brooks Family Retreat. Funny, I didn't remember inviting anyone to share my retreat. Ethan appeared, holding a cooler. "Mom, everyone's heading to the river. There's room in the car. Wanna come?" "I think I'll stay. I need to rest." "Ah, Mom, don't be like that. It'll do you good." "I'd rather stay. I've got laundry to do, dishes to put away." "See, Sophie, she never changes. She loves housework." They laughed together, but there was no warmth in it, just that subtle kind of mockery that cuts deeper than shouting. They left, and for the first time in 3 days, the house was silent. I walked through the rooms like someone revisiting a wounded body. Every corner bore their marks, towels thrown around, empty cans, crumbs on the couch. In the garden, the trampled flowers seemed to look at me with pity. I took out my notebook and wrote, "There is no peace where there is no respect." And there is no love where love only exists to be used. When they returned that night, they brought with them laughter, smells, sand, and chaos. Sophie complained about the heat, Ethan about gas prices. The kids asked for food, and no one noticed the fridge was almost empty again. I made simple sandwiches. As they ate, one of Sophie's uncles said, "You should charge admission, Mrs. Evelyn. This house is way too nice." They laughed, and Ethan added, still laughing, "Oh, she charges plenty. She charges with love, right, Mom?" His tone was light, but the words were heavy. It wasn't a joke, it was a warning. The unspoken debt of those who believe love is a lifetime obligation. After dinner, I sat near the fireplace. Sophie approached with her polished smile. "Evelyn, Ethan told me his father didn't leave anything in his name. That must have been hard for him, huh?" I said nothing. She went on. "He's such a hard worker, so dedicated. Sometimes I think he still carries that burden. I guess he just wants to feel acknowledged. His father loved him very much, of course, but you know how men are about inheritance. That kind of thing can leave marks." Marks, yes. I saw those marks every day in the subtext of conversations, in the small humiliations, in the requests disguised as affection. Ethan had never accepted what his father decided, and maybe he never would. In the following days, the routine repeated itself, and I began to understand what it means to be a prisoner in an open house. Cooking became duty, cleaning, unavoidable, smiling, expected. "You're so good at this, Mom. Oh, you don't mind, right? It's just for a few days." But a few days became a week, and each night I slept with less space, less food, and less voice. One evening, Ethan came into the kitchen. "Mom, everyone wants to rent a boat. Can you lend your card so we can pay now? We'll pay you back later." "Son, I don't think so. I need to manage my expenses." He laughed, but his eyes hardened. "Come on, Mom, please. It's just a couple £100. Everyone's counting on it." "I'm sorry, Ethan, but I can't, or won't. I shouldn't." He took a deep breath. "You know, sometimes I think money's made you bitter. Dad always said you had a big heart. Now it seems so small." The words cut like a knife, but I'd learned that some pain deserves silence because silence, sometimes, is the only dignified response. I picked up my teacup, left the kitchen, and let him talk to the empty air. Behind me, I heard him mutter, 70 years old and still doesn't know how to share. I didn't look back, but inside, something began to stir. Not anger, not yet, but awareness. Awareness that love without respect becomes servitude. That night, Sophie knocked on the door of the small room. "Evelyn, are you awake?" "Yes. Can I come in?" I nodded. She sat on the edge of the bed, adjusted her hair, and began. "Ethan's worried. He feels like you've been distant, like you don't like me, or my family." "That's not it. It's just that, you know, he needs to feel loved. You're all he has, and I need to be respected." She looked at me as if I'd said something absurd. "Respected, of course. But Evelyn, he's your son. He just wants to be close. Being close isn't the same as invading." Her smile faded. "Ethan doesn't understand why you're so cold." Cold. A bitter laugh rose in my throat. "Sweetheart, I've spent my whole life lighting other people's fires. I just forgot to save a match for myself." Sophie fell silent. Then she stood up. "Good night, good night." When she left, the room grew darker. But for the first time in a long time, I didn't feel guilty for defending my space. The next morning, I woke up to the sound of a car engine starting. Ethan was leaving. I asked, "Where are you going?" "Into town. Need to withdraw some cash. Since you didn't want to help with the boat trip, I'll take care of it." "Want me to come with you?" "No, Mom, rest. You've done enough. In your own way." The way he said "in your own way" felt like a shove, a criticism disguised as kindness, a reminder of everything he thought was wrong with me. But maybe he'd never understand that my way, the one he despised, was the same way that raised him, fed him, and saved him more times than he could count. I stayed alone for a few hours. The silence in the house felt strange now, but comforting. I made some coffee, sat on the porch, and looked out at the fields. The wind played with the curtains, and for the first time in days, I heard my own thoughts clearly. They didn't come out of love. They came for comfort. Then I remembered something George used to say, "Eve, real love is the kind that doesn't leave you poorer when it's gone." I smiled, bitterly. George had always known. When Ethan came back, his tone was cold. I avoided his eyes. He placed an envelope on the table. Here, Mom, for groceries. Everyone's staying till the end of the week. I took the envelope. Thank you. He looked at me, maybe waiting for gratitude. But this time, I didn't give it. That evening, on the porch, Ruth, my cousin who lived in the next town, called me. Eve, how are you? Tired, Ruth. The house has turned into a hotel. And Ethan, he's the same, always the same. Want me to come over? No, that's all right. I can still breathe. She laughed, with her usual practical tone. Then listen closely. Anyone who doesn't set boundaries becomes a step. And steps are meant to be stepped on. Her words echoed in my head for hours. A step. Maybe that's what I was to Ethan, a staircase. And he kept climbing, never looking down to see who was holding him up. Before bed, I opened my notebook once more. The pages were stained with coffee, dried tears, and silent promises. I wrote, my son thinks he still has a mother to use, but what he doesn't know is that inside this tired woman, a strength is waking up, and when she finally rises, no one will recognize the Evelyn they once walked over. I closed the notebook, turned off the light, and for the first time in a long time, I fell asleep unafraid to dream of tomorrow. The next days dragged on, slow, heavy, and exhausting. The sun would rise, the voices would start, the requests would return, and there I was again, repeating the same role I'd sworn to leave behind, the woman who serves, even when she's broken. On Wednesday morning, the smell of grease filled every room. Sophie was frying bacon while one of her nieces blow-dried her hair, using the kitchen outlet. Evelyn, can I use the iron? The dryer tripped the power in the back room. I nodded, not really understanding what she meant. I took the iron, plugged it in, pressed the clothes, and when I finished, no one said thank you. It was always like that. Every gesture of mine became invisible, as if caring was a duty, not a choice. I often wondered how many women of my generation died without realizing that sometimes love is just another name for exhaustion. That afternoon, Ethan called me out to the porch. He looked serious, tense, holding his phone. Mom, we need to talk. My heart tightened. What is it, son? People are saying you've been kind of distant, cold, like you're not happy we're here. I took a deep breath. Ethan, I'm just tired. That's all. But, Mom, they came a long way. They expected a bit more enthusiasm, and I expected a bit more respect. He laughed, incredulous. Respect. They adore you. No, Ethan, they adore the house. They adore the food. They adore not having to pay for anything. His smile vanished. You're overreacting. No, I'm just seeing clearly. He lowered his eyes, bit his lip. You know, sometimes I think Dad's money went to your head. You've become bitter. That word again, bitter. How many times are women called bitter simply because they stop swallowing other people's bitterness? I looked him straight in the eye. What's gone to my head, Ethan, is dignity. And it feels heavy when you've spent a lifetime carrying guilt. He said nothing, then shook his head and murmured, I don't even recognize you anymore. Neither do I recognize the son I raised. It was the first time we spoke without masks, and the first time I realized that love between a mother and son can, indeed, become a battlefield. That night, there was a special dinner. Sophie wanted to celebrate their last weekend in the countryside. The table was set carefully. Napkins, candles, glasses. She approached me and said, Evelyn, Ethan thought it'd be nice if you said a few words before the toast. After all, this house is yours. The words sounded generous, but her eyes weren't. Everyone sat down, 20 people. Laughter, the smell of meat, wine, cheap perfume, and hypocrisy. Ethan raised his glass. To my mother, the woman who welcomed us all with so much love, so much generosity. Even if she complained sometimes. Laughter around the table, small, but cruel. And I felt the heat rise to my face, not from shame, but from anger. He went on, kidding aside, she's the heart of this family. Always has been. And I hope she keeps being that, right, Mom? All eyes turned to me, waiting for the sweet old lady to give her speech. But something inside me had shifted. I couldn't smile. I couldn't pretend. I held my glass and simply said, thank you. I just hope that one day you'll all understand that love is not the same thing as submission. Silence. The laughter died instantly. Sophie looked at me, her expression icy. Oh, Evelyn. It was just a joke. Don't take it so seriously. Some things are only called jokes because no one dares to call them by their real name. I stood up, set the glass down, and walked out of the room. Behind me, I heard the whispers. She's been acting strange. Poor thing. Must be loneliness. Or old age. Old age, the word people use when they can't handle a woman who's no longer easy to control. Outside on the porch, the wind was cold. The stars felt too far away. I took out my notebook and, with trembling hands, wrote, "They want me soft, smiling, eternal." But I wasn't made to be the furniture of someone else's affection. I was made to exist. The next morning, I could tell my defiance had unsettled them. The atmosphere was awkward. Forced laughter, sideways glances. When I walked into the kitchen, Sophie was whispering with one of the aunts. As soon as she saw me, she changed the subject. "Evelyn, we were just saying how strong you are. Doing all this alone, after losing George, it must be so hard. It's not strength. It's necessity." She laughed, uneasy. "Of course, but you know, Ethan worries. He thinks you should enjoy life more, share responsibilities. Sometimes holding on to so much control only hurts you." Control. Interesting choice of word from someone who had taken over my room, my kitchen, and my peace. I smiled faintly. "Sweetheart, I don't control anything. I just keep standing what the rest of you try to tear down." Her face went pale, her smile stiff, and inside I felt something shift. For the first time, my voice sounded like someone who owed no one an apology. Later, I heard Ethan calling from the yard, "Mom, can you come here for a second?" I walked down the steps. He was by the grill, surrounded by a few relatives. We were thinking of splitting the cost for today's barbecue, but no one brought cash. "Could you cover it for now?" "Ethan, I already did the shopping for the whole week, but everyone will pay you back later." "Who, exactly?" He hesitated, glanced at the others, embarrassed. "Anyway, it's just to make things easier. You know I always pay you back." I felt all their eyes on me, waiting for the usual answer. The good mother, the sweet Evelyn, the one who never says no. "No, Ethan." The silence was thick. "What?" I said. "No, I can't, and I don't want to." His face hardened. "So you're just gonna let everyone go without dinner?" "No, I'm saying that whoever wants dinner can buy it." Murmurs began. One uncle grumbled, "Doesn't even seem like the same woman." One of the nieces whispered, "Guess the money really did go to her head." Ethan stepped closer. "Mom, why are you doing this? Trying to humiliate us?" "I just want to rest." "Oh, come on. This is about the will, isn't it? You still think I want what's yours? You don't need to want what's mine, Ethan. You already took what was my piece." He went silent. The others looked away, and for the first time, no one laughed. That night, there was no family dinner. Everyone ate in small groups quietly. Sophie cried softly in the bedroom. Ethan locked himself in the car, scrolling on his phone. The house, once full of noise, had turned into an echo. I sat on the porch, staring into the dark fields. The wind moved through the trees, and I thought about how nature understands what people forget. Anything overused will eventually dry up. I opened my notebook and wrote, "Love that doesn't recognize limits is the same love that destroys the soil where it grows." Today, I planted the first seed of my boundary. Tomorrow, maybe courage will bloom. In the morning, Ruth arrived unexpectedly. Her old car stopped at the gate, and she got out smiling, holding a basket of bread and fruit. "My brave cousin, heard your private inn is lively these days." I gave a humorless smile. Lively is a kind word. She looked around, immediately sensing the tension. I could smell the wounded egos from down the road. What happened? I told her everything. The words, the dinner, the confrontation. She listened quietly, then said, "You took too long to set boundaries. They're confused because they've never seen you choose yourself before. But that's not cruelty, Eve. That's survival." Her words fell like water on cracked earth. I needed to hear them. She took my hand. "Want a piece of practical advice?" I nodded. "Find a lawyer. Not to start a fight. To protect yourself. They're used to seeing you as a wallet and a maid. Show them there's now a woman with her own name inside the mother." When Ruth left, I stood at the gate watching her car disappear down the road. In my chest, a mix of fear and freedom. And for the first time, I thought, maybe a mother's love really does need a contract. I went inside, sat at the table, and began writing a short letter to the village lawyer. No arguments, just clarifications, use of the house, costs, responsibilities, signed, dated, in steady handwriting. When I finished, I noticed my hand was trembling, but not from weakness. It was the adrenaline of someone who, after decades, finally dares to say enough. That night, before bed, I looked into the mirror and barely recognized the reflection staring back. The wrinkles, yes, the fatigue, of course, but there was something new, the spark of a woman preparing to fight, not for revenge, but for respect. I closed my eyes and whispered to myself, enough. The sound of that word filled the room, and for the first time, the silence felt like a friend. The day began heavy. The sky, overcast, the wind, dry, the house, silent, as if it knew something was about to break. Ethan didn't look at me during breakfast. Sophie pretended to be polite, but her voice had edges. Evelyn, would you like me to wash the dishes? Or do you prefer doing everything yourself as usual? I'd prefer if everyone took care of what they dirty. Wow, someone's rude this morning. Rude is forgetting this house has an owner. Silence. The children laughed at something on a tablet. The clinking of metal against porcelain was the only honest conversation in the room. Ethan stood slowly. Mom, you're turning a vacation into hell. I didn't bring the hell here, son. I just opened the door thinking it was family. He took a deep breath, trying to stay calm, but his eyes no longer looked like a son's. They looked like a man's, one who sees his own mother as an obstacle. After breakfast, he disappeared into my room and stayed there for hours. Sophie paced the hallway, texting and laughing loudly. The house felt taken over by a bitter energy, part resentment, part disdain. When I went out to the yard, I found two of Sophie's nephews throwing empty cans into the old well. Hey boys, that could clog the pipes. One of them laughed. Relax, Grandma, we'll clean it later. My name is Evelyn. They glanced at each other, smirking. Sure, Evelyn. And they ran off. I stood there, looking at the murky water, and thought that maybe my patience had become that same well, filled with everyone else's trash, still pretending to be deep. At lunch, Ethan came downstairs, dressed up. We're going into town. Everyone wants to try the new restaurant. I nodded. Good idea. Oh, and it'd be great if you picked up the tab. You're the hostess, after all. Excuse me, Mom. It's just dinner. Show them you're not holding a grudge. A grudge, is that what they call boundaries now? Sophie stepped in, sugarcoating her tone. Ethan, leave it. Evelyn, everyone will understand if you don't want to come. We'll pay. You'll pay, I asked, looking straight at her. She averted her eyes. I mean, Ethan will. He gave an awkward laugh. Mom, my card's frozen at the moment. You know how banks are. Oh, I know, and I also know how easy it is to shift a grown man's burdens onto an old woman's back. The silence that followed was thick and cutting. The children stared, confused. Sophie sighed dramatically. Ethan, let's go. There's no talking to her. They left, slamming the door. I stood there, alone again. The sound of the car tires on the dirt road carried away the last of my patience. That afternoon, I decided to go to the lawyer's office, a small room on the main street of the village. He greeted me kindly. Mrs. Evelyn, what can I do for you? I need to understand what it means, legally, to set a boundary. I don't want to throw anyone out. I just want them to understand my home isn't a boarding house. He smiled, understanding. That's simple. We can draft a symbolic agreement stating that long stays come with costs, food, maintenance, general expenses. No need to register it formally, but it'll have weight if you ever need to enforce it. You can do that, of course. It'll be a cohabitation agreement. I signed it right there, and as the pen moved across the paper, I felt something reignite inside me, as if the fated woman I used to be was finally catching fire. I left the office with the document in hand and my heart light, and ready for war. When I got home, it was already night. Cars lined up at the gate, loud music, the smell of barbecue and alcohol. They'd invited neighbors, flashing lights in the yard, strangers dancing on my grass. Ethan saw me arrive. Look who's back, the star of the night. What's all this, Ethan? A party? Everyone wanted to have some fun. You weren't going out anyway, without asking. Mom, don't be such a drag. Everyone's having a good time and you show up preaching again. I looked around, bottles on the table, kids kicking a ball into the flower beds, someone sitting in my porch chair. My house was unrecognizable. My home, desecrated. Ethan, turn that music down now. He laughed. Oh great, the sheriff's here. Laughter followed. They laughed at me, at my tone, at my age, at the collapse of my authority. I felt my face burn. This house has rules, does it? Since when? He taunted. since the woman who owns it decided she's done being treated like the help. The laughter died. The music stopped, and the air grew thick. Ethan stepped closer. You just want to ruin everyone's night, don't you? I want you to respect the ground you're standing on. Ground. It's just an old house, Mom. The words cut deeper than he realized. It's the house that saved me from loneliness, and the one you've turned into shame. He let out a short, cruel laugh. You know what your problem is, Mom. You never learned how to share. Not Dad's love, not his money, and you never learned to value anything you can't spend. Sophie tried to step in. Ethan, please, but he was already consumed, eyes wet, pride wounded, fury rising, in the man who had never learned to accept no. You know what everyone here thinks, Mom? They think you're selfish, that you'd rather die surrounded by things than by people. I'd rather die surrounded by peace. A murmur rippled through the group, and then he said, his tone sharp and deliberate, than die alone, Mom. The sound of those words broke something inside me. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I just felt an old coldness, the same one I'd felt the day I buried George. But unlike that day, there was no love in this loss. There was freedom. The next morning, the house was silent. Empty bottles, scraps of food, the smell of smoke still in the air. Ethan and Sophie were still asleep. I took the document from the lawyer, sat at the kitchen table, and began to write another paper. This time, just a simple note. From today on, any stay in this house will have a cost. Each meal, each room, each use of power or supplies. It's not about money. It's about respect. I signed Evelyn Brooks, placed the note on the kitchen table beside the folded contract, and went to tend the garden. The wind was strong. The leaves rustled like soft applause. Maybe the fields understood that something important was happening. When Ethan came downstairs, he found the paper. I heard the sound of it hitting the table. What the hell is this? I kept my calm. It's just a formality, so we avoid any misunderstandings. You're charging me to stay in my own mother's house. No, son, I'm charging you for thinking you can still treat me like I'm not a person. He raised the paper and tore it in half. Happy now? Yes, because now I know exactly the kind of man I raised. Sophie ran in, panicked. Ethan, stop, please. But he was already shouting. You know what the problem is? Dad spoiled you too much. You got used to being in charge, acting like some kind of saint. I'm no saint, Ethan. I'm a survivor. Of what? Of you. The room went still. He stared at me, speechless. For an instant, I saw the little boy he once was, the one who ran to me crying after falling off his bike. But that boy had died a long time ago. Sophie was crying. The relatives, ashamed, began to pack their things, and one by one, they left. By the end of the day, only the three of us remained. When the last car pulled away, I sat on the porch. The fields glowed orange under the setting sun. Sophie came to me, eyes red. Evelyn, I'm so sorry. For him. For everything. For not understanding. Then, understand this. Love isn't lodging. It's a daily choice. And when only one person keeps choosing, it becomes slavery. She nodded softly, and without another word, went inside, packed her bags, and left too. I stayed there, alone, surrounded by silence, but this time, a silence that didn't hurt. That night, I wrote in my notebook, today, hell burned inside my home. But in the end, I realized, the fire that destroys also illuminates, and under that light, I finally found myself. I closed the notebook, smiled, and for the first time in weeks, I slept peacefully. The day dawned to calm, almost false. The fields seemed suspended between what had been and what was yet to come. The house, still steeped in the smells of smoke and bad memories, breathed like a tired body trying to heal itself. I brewed some coffee and sat by the window. The steam rose slowly, drawing soft spirals in the air. George used to say breakfast was the ritual of hope, but that morning, hope was the one thing I didn't have. What I felt was clarity, cold, sharp, necessary. I picked up the phone and called the village lawyer. Mr. Harris, it's Evelyn Brooks. I want to officially register that cohabitation agreement. He hesitated. Are you sure? It could cause misunderstandings. Those have already happened. Now I want it in writing. He scheduled an appointment for the afternoon, and for the first time, I didn't ask anyone's opinion. I left early for town. It was a small village, but news traveled like dry fire. People looked at me differently, some with curiosity, others with pity. At the little grocery store, I heard whispers. That's her, the woman from the farmhouse. They say she threw out her own son. Poor thing. Must be losing her mind. I kept walking. The shame that would have crushed me months ago was now just background noise. Because there's something worse than being judged, betraying yourself just to be accepted. At the office, the lawyer read the document aloud. It was simple, direct. The property located at 27 Vale Hollow is for the exclusive use of the owner, Evelyn Brooks. Any stay exceeding 72 hours will incur costs for maintenance, lodging, and meals, to be agreed upon in advance. Failure to comply authorizes the owner to terminate the stay at any time. I signed it. The sound of the pen on paper cracked like the snap of freedom. Would you like me to file it officially? Yes, I would. And how much do you plan to charge? I smiled. Enough to remind them that respect has a price, and that unconditional love isn't love without limits. He simply nodded, with the kind of respect one gives to someone who has finally stood up. When I returned home, the gate was open. Sophie was there, alone. Her eyes were puffy, a small suitcase by her side. Evelyn, Sophie, silence. She took a deep breath. I came to pick up the rest of my things, and to apologize. For what? For keeping quiet. For letting Ethan talk to you that way. I thought it was better not to get involved. The silence of the good can hurt more than the words of the cruel. She cried. He blamed me for everything. Said I turned you against him. Said you hated me. I don't hate anyone, Sophie. I just refuse to keep dying so others can live in peace. She wiped her tears and looked around. This house is beautiful, and now it's full of courage. I smiled faintly. Courage smells like something clean. That's why I scrubbed everything last night. She laughed through her tears. Can I give you a hug? I nodded. It was brief but sincere. And when she left, I realized maybe humanity wasn't completely lost in that broken marriage after all. In the days that followed, solitude became my ally. I woke early, swept the yard, tended the flowers. I started going to the local market, meeting neighbors, selling embroidery. People still whispered, but now I smiled, and my smile unsettled them. Because those expecting weakness never know what to do when they meet serenity. One morning, Ruth showed up again with a basket of bread and eyes full of pride. So it's true. You actually filed the contract. I did. You're a legend, Eve. Half the women in the village think you're crazy, and the other half want to be you. Then we're making progress. She laughed out loud. And Ethan, he hasn't called, but I know he's been talking. Let him talk. The truth has long legs. It always catches up to those running from their conscience. That night, I sat on the porch with a cup of tea. The sky looked clear after the storm. I gazed out over the fields, thought of George, and whispered softly, "You'd be proud, love." I finally learned how to choose myself. Suddenly, the phone rang. An unknown number. I answered. Mom. The sound of his voice still stirred something in me. Ethan, can we talk? About what? About everything. I think I went too far. You think? I'm not here to justify myself. I just wanted to say I miss you. I closed my eyes. The words I'd waited a lifetime to hear had finally come, but they were only an echo now. Son, missing me isn't the same as being sorry. I know, but can we start over? Only from afar. I'm starting over with myself. On the other end, silence. Then he said, "People are talking about you, Mom. They say you've gone crazy." Then let me be crazy in peace. And I hung up. I stayed awake all night, not out of sadness, but relief. Because guilt, that old companion, had finally packed its bags. I picked up my notebook and wrote, "Today, the world calls me cold, bitter, crazy. But it's strange how no one remembers the times I was fire, honey, medicine." People grow so used to a woman's giving that when she finally says enough, they mistake self-preservation for cruelty. I closed the notebook, took a deep breath, and smiled. That was it. My enough hadn't come as a scream, it had come as peace. A few days later, Ruth organized a small gathering in the village. She wanted to introduce me to other women going through similar things. Eve, talk to them. Tell them what happened. You have no idea how powerful your story is. Ruth, I'm no example to anyone. You are. You just don't see it yet. There were 10 women in that room. Some young, others elderly. Tired eyes, restless hands, broken hearts. I told them everything, without drama, without heroics, just the truth. When I finished, one of them, gray-haired, she-eyed, said quietly, "I thought it was just me, that it was wrong to be tired." I answered, Being tired is human. What's wrong is fading away to fit inside someone else's idea of love. And in that moment, I realized my pain might have found its purpose. I came home at sunset. The windows were open, letting the soft wind flow through. The house breathed again. The same house that, weeks ago, had been a stage for humiliation now smelled of fresh bread and quiet courage. I lit the fireplace, sat in the armchair, and thought, the woman who said enough didn't lose her family. She lost her chains. I closed my eyes and imagined George smiling, the fields blooming, Ruth laughing loudly somewhere down the road. Life, finally, fit inside me again. Weeks had passed since the last phone call. Quiet days, good days, days when solitude felt like an embrace, not a punishment. The house, at last, breathed in peace. The fields were blooming. Silence had become melody again. Until, on a gray afternoon, the sound of a car climbing the road toward the gate made my stomach twist. I knew that engine, the rhythm of the gears, the habit of honking twice. Ethan, my heart reacted before my mind did. For a moment, I thought about hiding. But no, the woman I used to be might have. The one I am now. Meets things standing tall. I stepped onto the porch. The car stopped. The door opened. He stepped out slowly. Unshaven, tired eyes. No Sophie, no laughter, no crowd. Just him, and a faint cloud of rehearsed remorse. Moan, Ethan, Sila. The wind blew between us, carrying dry leaves and memories I didn't want to revisit. He looked around. The house looks different. It's clean. It's cold. Cold is what the ungrateful call peace. He swallowed hard. Can I come in? Depends. How long are you staying? He gave a nervous laugh, still with that sense of humor. That's not humor, Ethan. That's a contract. I walked inside. He followed. The sound of his shoes on the floor echoed like the memory of old footsteps when he used to run around the store as a little boy, asking for coins to buy ice cream. And now he stood there, a grown man, asking for something else. I sat at the table. He remained standing, hesitant. Coffee. Sure. I poured it in silence. The aroma filled the air, but the flavor seemed to have vanished. He took a deep breath. Mom, I don't know where to start. Usually, the truth is a good place. All right, I need help. The words hung in the air. No surprise, only confirmation. Help. Financial help. Just temporary. Temporary. That's what you always say when you want something permanent. He bristled. I thought, after everything, you'd want peace between us. Peace, yes. Parasites, no. His eyes filled with a mix of anger and shame. Mom, I didn't come here for charity. I have a business, a project. I just need a loan to get it started. Business, a small construction company. I just need some capital. And I thought, who better to trust me than my own mother? I gave a bitter smile. Trust is built, Ethan, and you tore down every brick. What do you want me to do? Get on my knees. I want you to grow up. He sat, rigid, fingers tapping the table. Do you really think Dad was fair to me? The question cut deep. Are we really going back to that? Answer me. I think your father was wise. Wise. He left you everything and left me what? Memories. He left me responsibilities. And he left you with choices. Easy to say when you've got the money. Hard to hear when all you've got is pride. He slammed his hand on the table. You've always belittled me. I loved you too much. That's what belittled you. The words slipped out before I could stop them, but I didn't regret it, because they were true. He leaned back, stunned. What did you say? I'll say it again. Too much care made you believe the world owed you comfort. And now that the world is asking for payment, you come running to the one who's always spared you from consequences. He went silent, and for a moment, the quiet between us was louder than any argument. Then he played his last card. You know, Mom, the bank's going to take my car, and I don't have anywhere to stay. You have friends. They're gone. They always are. Now you understand the value of what you lost. You're kicking me out. I'm giving you what I never got. A lesson. He sighed, defeated. You really have changed. No, Ethan. I just went back to being who I was before I shaped myself around your comfort. Tears welled in his eyes. For a second, I saw the boy again, and my heart almost gave in. But my body, tired of yielding, stayed still. Can I stay a few days? 3. It's in the contract. He stared at me, disbelieving. You're really going to charge your own son for staying here? No, I'm charging you for respect. The next few days were a quiet repetition of what we'd lived before. but reversed. Now, the silence was his. I cooked for myself, left his dishes for him to wash. He noticed, and shrank a little more each day. Sometimes he tried to start a conversation. "Mom, remember the old shop days?" "I do. You used to sell those candies everyone loved." I sold them to pay the bills, not to please anyone. Every word I spoke was a brick laid on a new foundation, solid, straight, steady, and for the first time, he didn't know where to step. On the third day, before leaving, he came to me with an envelope in his hands. "It's not much, but I want to pay for the days I stayed here." I looked at him, surprised. "You don't have to." "Yes, I do. If it's respect you want, I guess this is how I show it." I took the envelope, without opening it. "Thank you." He hesitated. "Can I give you a hug?" I nodded. It was brief and sincere, different from the old embraces, those heavy ones, filled with guilt. When his car disappeared down the road, my chest ached, but in a good way. It was the pain of giving birth late in life to myself. That night, I wrote in my notebook, "Love is a debt without interest, but not without limits. When love demands one side bleeds so the other can sleep in peace, it's no longer love." Today, I learned the price of my own freedom, to stop buying silence with affection. I closed the notebook and looked up at the sky. The moon was full. So was I. In the days that followed, the talk began. People in the village stopped me on the street. "Heard your son came back. Heard you charged him. Heard he left furious." At each remark, I smiled. Hearing is easy. Living is what's hard. Some women looked at me with quiet admiration. Others, with fear. Fear of seeing themselves in me. Because every time a woman says no to her own blood, the world shakes a little. One afternoon, Ruth arrived with a bottle of wine and 2 glasses. "News travels fast. You're a legend now, cousin. Legend or villain. Depends who's telling the story. To some, you're the mother who lost her mind. To me, you're the one who finally woke up." We laughed. We drank. And for a moment, life felt light again. Ruth looked at me, suddenly serious. "Do you realize, all this time, you thought you were alone, but there was an army of women watching you, waiting for your courage so they could find their own." I looked out at the fields, the orange sky, the sound of cicadas, and said, "Then maybe that's why I lived this long. To teach that saying enough isn't the end. It's only the first chapter of freedom." The wind had turned gentle again. The days no longer tasted of waiting. The house, once a stage for shouting and tears, now breathed calmly, as if it, too, had learned how to forgive. In the first days after Ethan left, the silence was heavy. It echoed through the walls, a cruel reminder of what I'd lost. But little by little, that same silence began to change its tone. It stopped screaming absence and started whispering presence. My presence. I woke up early, made coffee. The aroma filled the rooms, and I caught myself thinking, I survived. And as simple as that thought was, it tasted like 1,000 victories. I started to write again, not in my old notebook this time, but on loose sheets. Ruth had convinced me. "Write it all down, Eve. Your story is medicine for those who haven't yet found the courage to bleed." So I wrote. I wrote about love that suffocates, about guilt that enslaves, about silence that hurts, and then heals. Each word was a piece of the woman I had once buried inside myself. The pages began to pile up on the kitchen table. One day, Ruth took them without telling me, and brought them to the city. Weeks later, she came back smiling. "Someone wants to publish it." "Publish what?" "What you wrote." "But that's not literature, Ruth. That's confession." "Exactly. And confession is the bravest kind of literature there is." News spread through the village. Some women started to visit me, quietly. They came with tearful eyes and familiar stories. Abusive husbands, ungrateful sons, families that mistook love for debt. I listened, just listened. And I realized that listening was a new kind of love I could offer, one that didn't cost me pieces of myself. One afternoon, a young widow named Grace appeared with a letter in her hand. "I heard you know something about losing and starting over." I smiled, knowing, yes, liking it, not yet. She laughed, nervous, then broke into tears. We stood there, holding each other, no words needed. When she left, I pinned a note to the door. "Here, no one judges. Here, pain isn't shame. Here, silence heals." That sentence became the house's motto. And without planning it, I had created a refuge, the same kind I once came here searching for. In time, that small circle became a ritual. We gathered on Sunday afternoons. We shared stories, recipes, letters. Some came just to listen, others, to remember they still existed. Ruth, with her usual humor, said, "Congratulations, Evelyn. You've built a sanctuary, and didn't even need an altar." And she was right. With every woman who left that house a little lighter, I healed a little more myself. One morning, I received a brown envelope, no return address. Inside, a short note. "I read about you in the paper. I don't know if you deserve forgiveness, but I know I deserve peace. E." I held the paper for a long time. The E could have been Ethan, or just the echo of the past. Either way, the note carried no anger, only surrender. I looked out the window. The fields were golden. I thought of the boy who once ran there, pockets full of dreams, and a heart empty of gratitude. And for the first time, it didn't hurt to remember. That afternoon, Ruth arrived carrying newspapers. "Have you seen this? They're calling your group the Circle of Silence. Beautiful name. Beautiful and powerful. Women from the city are asking to join." I smiled. Who would have thought? The house that once hosted my hell is now a school for peace. She looked at me tenderly. "You realize you've already forgiven him, right?" "No. I just stopped needing to be understood." Weeks passed. Sundays filled up. Laughter lived here again. The smell of cake, the scrape of chairs, the wind playing with the curtains. Everything simple. Everything whole. One afternoon, as we wrapped up a meeting, Grace asked, "And if he comes back?" I thought for a moment. My heart still moved, softly, but firmly. "If he comes back, he'll find a woman, not a wounded mother." She smiled. "And what would you say to him?" I didn't hesitate. "Thank you for teaching me what love is not." That night, I wrote another page in my notebook. They say time heals. It doesn't. Time just passes. What heals is the courage to look at yourself without pity, and to choose to go on, even knowing love can fail. I closed the notebook, turned off the lights, and sat by the fireplace. The fire danced as if celebrating, and I understood that sometimes life is just that, losing everything that held you down, so you can finally hold on to what sets you free. It was the beginning of autumn. The leaves had started to fall slowly, painting the ground gold. The wind already carried that scent of changing seasons, the same scent that comes when life decides to turn the page. I was in the yard, trimming the rosebushes, my hands dirty with soil, my heart clean of resentment. That's when I heard the sound, a car coming up the road, the same sound that, months ago, had made me freeze. This time, I didn't fear it, I just breathed. The car stopped, the door opened, and there he was, Ethan, thinner eyes, tired, no suit, no pride, no pretense, just a man stripped of everything he once mistook for strength. We stood still for a few seconds, measuring the silence. He was the first to break it. "Mom, Ethan, can I come in?" "Of course, but this is a house for scheduled visits now." He laughed, a small, shy laugh, the kind of laugh that comes from someone returning smaller than when they left. "I called several times, but you didn't answer." I needed silence. And did it answer you? It answered everything. We went inside, the same floor, the same walls, but the air was different, lighter, cleaner. Even the house seemed to understand that it now belonged to peace. I sat at the table and poured coffee. He looked around, noticing the framed, dried flowers on the wall, the stacks of letters from the women who came to the group. "I read about you. The Circle of Silence." "Right." Ruth came up with the name. "And now you help people." "No. I just listen. Sometimes that's all someone needs." He lowered his head. "You know, when I read that first article, I got angry." "Why?" "Because I realized everyone admired you, and I had judged you. You became an inspiration, and I became the man who hurt you." I stayed quiet. His tears came slowly, almost shyly. "I didn't come to ask for money, Mom, or forgiveness." "Then what did you come for?" "A way to look in the mirror without feeling ashamed." I looked at him, the same face I once held through fevers, the same heart I protected until almost losing my own. And for the first time, there was no fear between us, only humanity. "Sit down, Ethan," he did. We sat face to face, 2 generations, 2 silences, 2 scars. "What do you want to hear from me?" "Nothing. I just want you to know that I understand." "Understand what?" "That I spent my whole life waiting for you to love me the way I thought I deserved. But love isn't demanded, it's learned." His voice trembled, and I learned too late. Late is still time, son. Forgiveness isn't an invitation to return. It's just a way to set the weight down. He nodded. eyes shining. Can I hug you? You can, but this time, without guilt. We embraced, brief, without tears, without promises, a hug of acceptance, not of forgetting. Afterward, he looked around and smiled. The house looks different. It's alive. So are you. Finally. He stood for a moment, gazing out at the fields, hands in his pockets, voice soft. Can I come by sometimes? No crowds, no noise, just me. You can, but bring respect and firewood. No one arrives here empty-handed. He laughed clean, genuine, a sound I hadn't heard in years. Then he said goodbye. No rush, no guilt. He drove off slowly down the road. I stayed on the porch until the car disappeared. The wind passed through the trees, swaying the curtains. I felt George there, and thought that maybe love doesn't die. It just changes jobs, from hope to wisdom. Later, I sat at the table and opened my notebook. The last page was still blank. I wrote slowly. Today, my son came back, but the woman who received him wasn't the same mother he left behind. She was whole, a woman who learned to love without losing herself. And that's how I discovered both the price and the worth of the same feeling. The love that frees you is the only kind worth keeping. I closed the notebook, looked out the window, the fields golden, life whole, and I whispered softly, to no one and to everything. It took me 70 years to understand that loneliness isn't being alone, it's not having yourself. Now, I have me, and that's enough. And now tell me in the comments, where are you from, and what do you think about my story? I want to thank this channel Buried by Family for allowing me to share this part of my life with you. This channel needs your support to keep bringing more stories like this one. So, like this video, and click the subscribe button. That way, other women will also be able to share their truths here. On the screen, there's another video you might like, and the icon to subscribe to the channel.